Hello my beautiful people, welcome back to another video of The Nerd Out. Today, we're going to be talking about A Love Letter to You 5 by Trippie Redd. Look, for those of you that don't know, Trippie Redd, at the beginning of this year, he dropped this album called Mansion Music. And Mansion Music was a mess. It was a complete hot mess. It was a disaster. That album was horrendous. The mixing was awful. The sequencing was awful. That album was way too long for its own good. Trippie Redd really did mess up with that album. Mansion Music was horrendous, and I do not recommend that album to anybody. And I remember that album came out at the beginning of this year. It was like early January, right? And coming into this album, A Love Letter to You 5, I was skeptical, as well as many fans were skeptical, because, you know, how is Trippie Redd gonna come back from that hot mess that was Mansion Music? You know, he really is gonna have to do something else. Trippie was gonna have to reinvigorate and reinvent his sound, because he really needed to come back strong after that mess that was Mansion Music. And did he do that? Well, sort of, you know. A Love Letter to You 5 is very well known for these melodic cuts, these emotional cuts that are filled with piano keys and acoustic guitars. And for the most part, that's what this album is, a melodic, emo kind of album, you know, with a lot of love messages and stuff like that. And for the most part, it's nothing new. It's nothing that we haven't seen before. But let's go into it, because starting off, we have the first track, Take Me Away, which shows Trippie Redd's vocal diversity, and it also has a Corbin feature, which it's very emotional. You know, you have those piano keys coming in towards the end, and it really just shows what A Love Letter to You 5 is all about. You know, it's these melodic, emotional cuts, very driven by the piano keys, very melancholic, very relaxed. You know, I mean, you go to a song like Last Days, it has a very melodic performance with cinematic drums, right? And very slow pace, you know, very relaxed. And that's what this album is about, you know. Trippie Redd was kind of just like expressing his emotions. He was just really getting vulnerable, unlike Mansion Music, which is the complete opposite. Mansion Music, you know, very tirade inspired, it's very aggressive. You know, Trippie is basically screaming on almost all of the songs, right? But on here, you get this very different Trippie. Not different compared to the rest of his catalog or the rest of his discography, because then again, Trippie Redd with this album, he didn't really come out of his comfort zone. He played it safe, and to a certain extent, I'm glad that he played it safe, because imagine he went on to do something completely different after Mansion Music and it flopped again. Like, that would have been awful, right? Like, Trippie Redd is on the verge of just falling off, and, you know, I don't want to see him falling off. He's an amazing, talented artist, and I want to see him succeed. You know, I want to see him continue to make great quality projects, but he does have a couple of duds in his discography. And, you know, that's something we have to talk about, you know, when it comes to Trippie Redd as an album artist, as an overall artist in general, right? But thankfully, with this album, he did play it safe. And even though he did play it safe, we still get a lot of great cuts, like Thy Motion, which is a slow burning emotional track with acoustics, like I mentioned earlier. You know, it really is very catchy and just very melodramatic and slow paced, and it's not necessarily the most exciting album experience when you come to think about it, because the album then again is very slow. You know, it's more emotional, it's more raw and vulnerable, and you've gotten to see this side of Trippie on various albums before, but getting to see him again after albums like Trip at Night and Mansion Music it's kind of refreshing to a certain extent. Not really, but it's glad to see him getting back into his melodic bag. And, you know, you get to see this along tracks like How You Alive, Thinking About You, Praying for Love. And, you know, I want to talk about Thinking About You, because Thinking About You is a very energetic track compared to the rest. You know, he really catches this melodic bag where it's just so infectious, and I absolutely love the hook. You know, you go to songs like Feeling, which are, again, great tracks featuring Sky Morales. You know, her vocals were angelic. I love them. And, you know, throughout the track list, you're going to notice that there are a couple of tracks like I'm Mad at Me or Trip McKnight, which are very different and very unique compared to the soundscape of the album. For example, I'm Mad at Me featuring Lil Wayne, it features this Chickmunk soul sound. I'm Mad at Me features this triumphant Chickmunk, very luxurious beat, and you get to see Trippie Redd and Lil Wayne just rapping their asses off. It's very rap eccentric compared to the rest of the album, because for the most part the album is very R&B based, it's very melodic, and to see something like I'm Mad at Me on this track list is very refreshing. You know, it keeps the listener engaged, it keeps the listener on their toes. They don't know what to expect, because for the most part this album, You know, it's not anything different, it's not anything new, and for the most part you do know what to expect out of Trippie Redd when it comes to this album, especially to this whole album series, A Love Letter to You. But then you get a standout track like I'm Mad at Me featuring Lil Wayne, and you know, you get great rapping performances from both of them on this very different style of production, and I absolutely love that, you know. And another track that I really want to talk about with another great feature, probably one of the best tracks on this album, is Win featuring Kid Laroi, because at the start of the song you get this dirty, grimy, kind of poorly mixed on purpose verse from the Kid Laroi, and it's very raw, it's very emotional, and then all of a sudden you start building up, you know, his tone starts to rise up and lower it again and rise up and lower again before you get this infectious, very cinematic, very grandiose hook, which is just an earworm for me, and I absolutely love that track because Win, it's one of the best ones for sure. Kid Laroi killed the performance. But then you have tracks like Helicopter, which are just very odd. It doesn't really fit the track. I mean, the Jamaican accent doesn't necessarily really make sense for the album. It was very out of touch with the rest of the songs, and it wasn't really something that was needed. I think it's the outlier of the album, and nobody really needed that song, you know. But I feel like the track list starts to slow down a little bit towards the end. And while yes, the album starts off strong and still has some great songs towards the end, like Wind, like I just mentioned, featuring the Kid Laroi, it definitely starts to slow down with songs like Trip McKnight and Flowers featuring Bryson Tiller. You know, songs that aren't really memorable, songs that I won't really go back to. They're slower paced, you know, and this is something that we've already seen at the beginning of the album, which much catchier, much better performances. But overall, A Love Letter to You 5, it's a decent album. It's good, it's solid, it's a nice entry from Trippie Redd. And while it's not something that'll last in rotation too much, it was still nice to see Trippie Redd come back and get into his zone. You know, it was nice seeing him get into what he already knows how to do. Because like I said, after Mansion Music, he really needed to go back to square one. But anyways, that's been it. I'm going to give the album a 5 out of 10. All that being said, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you for watching another video, my beautiful people, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.